There is something endlessly fascinating about old advice. Sometimes it feels like it could have been written yesterday, a quiet reminder to speak kindly, listen well, and let others finish their stories before leaping in with your own. And then, sometimes it suggests that a proper lady should never refer to her husband by his first name, and that one must never leave the house without gloves, even in the height of summer. This book is full of both. Published in 1860, the Ladies Book of Etiquette and Manual of Politeness was once a popular guide for young women navigating the complex codes of 19th century society. Some of its advice has aged gracefully. Other parts, well, let's just say they offer a window into another world entirely. So sit back and enjoy a journey through this old book, equal parts elegant, timeless, yet also quite absurd at times to modern ears, but always strangely endearing. Let's get started now.
In preparing a book of etiquette for ladies, I would lay down as the first rule, do unto others as you would others should do to you. You can never be rude if you bear the rule always in mind, for what lady likes to be treated rudely? True Christian politeness will always be the result of an unselfish regard for the feelings of others, and though you may err in the ceremonious points of etiquette, you will never be impolite. Politeness, founded upon such a rule, becomes the expression, in gracious manner, of social virtues. The spirit of politeness consists in a certain attention to forms and ceremonies, which are meant both to please others and ourselves, and to make others pleased with us. A still clearer definition may be given by saying that politeness is goodness of heart put into daily practice. There can be no true politeness without kindness, purity, singleness of heart, and sensibility. Many believe that politeness is but a mask worn in the world to conceal bad passions and impulses, and to make a show of possessing virtues not really existing in the heart. Thus, that politeness is merely hypocrisy and dissimulation. Do not believe this. Be certain that those who profess such a doctrine are practicing themselves the deceit they condemn so much. Such people scout politeness, because, to be truly a lady, one must carry the principles into every circumstance of life, into the family circle, the most intimate friendship, and never forget to extend the gentle courtesies of life to everyone. True politeness is the language of a good heart, and those possessing that heart will never, under any circumstances, be rude. They may not enter a crowded saloon gracefully. They may be entirely ignorant of the forms of good society. They may be awkward at table, ungrammatical in speech, but they will never be heard speaking so as to wound the feelings of another. They will never be seen making others uncomfortable by seeking solely for their own personal convenience. They will always endeavor to set everyone around them at ease. They will be self-sacrificing, friendly, unselfish, truly in word and deed, polite. Give to such a woman the knowledge of the forms and customs of society. Teach her how best to show the gentle courtesies of life, and you have a lady, created by God, only indebted for the outward polish to the world. It is true that society demands this same unselfishness and courtesy, but when there is no heart in the work, the time is frittered away on the mere ceremonies, forms of etiquette, and customs of society, and this politeness seeks only its own ends. To be known as courteous, spoken of as ladylike, and not be loved as unselfish and womanly. Etiquette exists in some form in all countries, has existed, and will exist in all ages. From the rudest savage who dares not approach his ignorant, barbarous ruler without certain forms and ceremonies, to the most polished courts in Europe, or the home circles of America, etiquette reigns. True politeness will be found, its basis in the human heart, the same in all these varied scenes and situations, but the outward forms of etiquette will vary everywhere. Politeness, being based upon real kindness of heart, cannot exist where there is selfishness or brutality to warp its growth. It is founded upon love of the neighbor and a desire to be beloved and to show love. Rudeness will repel where courtesy would attract friends. Never by word or action notice the defects of another. Be charitable, for all need charity. Remember who said, Let him that is without fault cast the first stone. Remember that the laws of politeness require the consideration of the feelings of others, the endeavour to make everyone feel at ease, and frank courtesy towards all. Never meet rudeness in others with rudeness upon your own part. Politeness forbids any display of resentment. The polished surface throws back the arrow. Remember that a favour becomes doubly valuable if granted with courtesy, and that the pain of a refusal may be softened if the manner expresses polite regret. Kindness, even to the most humble, will never lose anything by being offered in a gentle, courteous manner, and the most commonplace action will admit of grace and ease in its execution. Let every action, while it is finished in strict accordance with etiquette, be, at the same time, easy, as if dictated solely by the heart. To be truly polite, remember you must be polite at all times, and under all circumstances.
In this first chapter, the author begins with the art of conversation, and, surprisingly, much of it still rings true. Pay attention, don't interrupt, let others finish their stories. Good manners, it turns out, never goes out of style.
The art of conversation consists in the exercise of two fine qualities. You must originate, and you must sympathize. You must possess at the same time the habit of communicating and of listening attentively. The union is rare, but irresistible. None but an excessively ill-bred person will allow her attention to wander from the person with whom she is conversing, and especially she will never, while seeming to be entirely attentive to her companion, answer a remark or question made to another person, in another group. Unless the conversation be general among a party of friends, confine your remarks and attention entirely to the person with whom you are conversing. Steele says, "I would establish but one great general rule in conversation, which is this, that people should not talk to please themselves, but those who hear them. This would make them consider whether what they speak be worth hearing, whether there be either wit or sense in what they are about to say, and whether it be adapted to the time when, the place where, and the person to whom it is spoken. Be careful in conversation to avoid topics which may be supposed to have any direct reference to events or circumstances which may be painful for your companion to hear discussed. You may unintentionally start a subject which annoys or troubles the friend with whom you may be conversing. In that case, do not stop abruptly when you perceive that it causes pain, and, above all, do not make the matter worse by apologizing. Turn to another subject as soon as possible, and pay no attention to the agitation your unfortunate remark may have excited. Many persons will, for the sake of appearing witty or smart, wound the feelings of another deeply. Avoid this. It is not only ill-bred, but cruel. Remember that having all the talk sustained by one person is not conversation. Do not engross all the attention yourself by refusing to allow another person an opportunity to speak, and also avoid the other extreme of total silence, or answering only in monosyllables if your companion relates an incident or tells a story. Be very careful not to interrupt her by questions, even if you do not clearly understand her. Wait until she has finished her relation, and then ask any questions you may desire. There is nothing more annoying than to be so interrupted. Never interrupt anyone who is speaking. It is very ill-bred. If you see that a person to whom you wish to speak is being addressed by another person, never speak until she has heard and replied, until her conversation with that person is finished. No truly polite lady ever breaks in upon a conversation or interrupts another speaker. Never, in speaking to a married lady, inquire for her husband, or, if a gentleman, ask for his wife. The elegant way is to call the absent party by their name. Ask Mr. Smith how Mrs. Smith is, or inquire of Mrs. Jones for Mr. Jones, but never for your husband or your wife. On the other hand, if you are married, never speak of your husband as your lord, husband, or good man. Avoid, also, unless amongst relatives, calling him by his Christian name. If you wish others to respect him, show by speaking of him in respectful terms that you do so yourself. If either your own husband or your friend is in the army or navy, or can claim the doctor, professor, or any other prefix to his name, there is no impropriety in speaking of him as the colonel, doctor, or whatever his title may be. It is a mark of ill breeding to use French phrases or words, unless you are sure your companion is a French scholar, and, even then, it is best to avoid them. Above all, do not use any foreign word or phrase, unless you have the language perfectly at your command. I heard a lady once use a Spanish quotation. She had mastered that one sentence alone. But a Cuban gentleman, delighted to meet an American who could converse with him in his own tongue, immediately addressed her in Spanish. Embarrassed and ashamed, she was obliged to confess that her knowledge of the language was confined to one quotation. Never anticipate the point or joke of any anecdote told in your presence. If you have heard the story before, it may be new to others, and the narrator should always be allowed to finish it in his own words. To take any sentence from the mouth of another person, before he has time to utter it, is the height of ill breeding. Avoid it carefully. Never use the phrases, "What do you call it?" "Thingamy," "What's his name?" or any such substitutes for a proper name or place. If you cannot recall the names you wish to use, it is better not to tell the story or incident connected with them. No lady of high breeding will ever use these substitutes in conversation. Be careful always to speak in a distinct, clear voice. At the same time, avoid talking too loudly. There is a happy medium between mumbling and screaming. Strive to attain it. Overlook the deficiencies of others when conversing with them, as they may be the results of ignorance, and impossible to correct. Never pain another person by correcting, before others, a word or phrase mispronounced or ungrammatically constructed. If your intimacy will allow it, speak of the fault upon another occasion, kindly and privately, or let it pass. Do not be continually watching for faults, that you may display your own superior wisdom in correcting them. Let modesty and kind feeling govern your conversation, as other rules of life. If, on the other hand, your companion uses words or expressions which you cannot understand, do not affect knowledge, or be ashamed of your ignorance, but frankly ask for an explanation. In conversing with professional gentlemen, never question them upon matters connected with their employment. An author may communicate, voluntarily, information interesting to you upon the subject of his works, but any questions from you would be extremely rude. If you meet a physician who is attending a friend, you may inquire for their progress, but do not expect him to give you a detailed account of the disease and his manner of treating it. The same rule applies to questioning lawyers about their clients, artists on their paintings, merchants or mechanics of their several branches of business. Professional or business men, when with ladies, generally wish for miscellaneous subjects of conversation, and, as their visits are for recreation, they will feel excessively annoyed if obliged to talk shop. Still, many men can converse on no other subject than their everyday employment. In this case, listen politely and show your interest. You will probably gain useful information in such conversation. Never question the veracity of any statement made in general conversation. If you are certain a statement is false, and it is injurious to another person, who may be absent, you may quietly and courteously inform the speaker that he is mistaken, but if the falsehood is of no consequence, let it pass. If a statement appears monstrous, but you do not know that it is false, listen, but do not question its veracity. It may be true, though it strikes you as improbable. Never attempt to disparage an absent friend. It is the height of meanness. If others admire her, and you do not, let them have their opinion in peace. You will probably fail if you try to lower her in their esteem, and gain for yourself the character of an ill-natured, envious person. In conversing with foreigners, if they speak slightingly of the manners of your country, do not retort rudely or resentfully. If their views are wrong, converse upon the subject, giving them frankly your views, but never retaliate by telling them that some custom of their own country is worse. A gentleman or lady of true refinement will always give your words candid consideration, and admit that an American may possibly know the customs of her country better than they do. And if your opponent is not well bred, your rudeness will not improve his manners. Let the conversation upon national subjects be candid, and at the same time courteous, and leave him to think that the ladies in America are well bred, however much he may dislike some little national peculiarity. Avoid, at all times, mentioning subjects or incidents that can in any way disgust your hearers. Many persons will enter into the details of sicknesses, which should be mentioned only when absolutely necessary, or describe the most revolting scenes before a room full of people, or even at table. Others speak of vermin, noxious plants, or instances of uncleanliness. All such conversation or allusion is excessively ill-bred. It is not only annoying, but absolutely sickening to some, and a truly ladylike person will avoid all such topics. I cannot too severely censure the habit of using sentences which admit of a double meaning. It is not only ill-bred, but indelicate, and no person of true refinement will ever do it. If you are so unfortunate as to converse with one who uses such phrases, never by word, look, or sign, show that you understand any meaning beyond the plain, outspoken language. Avoid always any discussion upon religious topics, unless you are perfectly certain that your remarks cannot annoy or pain anyone present. If you are tête-à-tête with a friend, and such a discussion arise, inquire your companion's church and mention your own, that you may yourself avoid unpleasant remarks, and caution him. Never, when advancing an opinion, assert positively that a thing is so, but give your opinion as an opinion. Say, I think this is so, or these are my views, but remember that your companion may be better informed upon the subject under discussion, or, where it is a mere matter of taste or feeling, do not expect that all the world will feel exactly as you do. Never repeat to a person with whom you converse any unpleasant speech you may have heard concerning her. If you can give her pleasure by the repetition of a delicate compliment, or token of approval shown by a mutual friend, tell her the pleasant speech or incident, but do not hurt her feelings, or involve her in a quarrel by the repetition of ill-natured remarks. Amongst well-bred persons, every conversation is considered in a measure confidential. A lady or gentleman tacitly confides in you when he, or she, tells you an incident which may cause trouble if repeated, and you violate a confidence as much in such a repetition as if you were bound over to secrecy. Remember this: never criticize a companion's dress, or indeed make any remark whatever upon it. If a near friend, you may, if sincere, admire any article, but with a mere acquaintance let it pass unnoticed. If, however, any accident has happened to the dress, of which she is ignorant, tell her of it, and assist her in repairing the mischief. To be able to converse really well, you must read much. Treasure in your memory the pearls of what you read. You must have a quick comprehension, observe passing events, and listen attentively whenever there is any opportunity of acquiring knowledge. A quick tact is necessary, too, in conversation. To converse with an entirely uneducated person upon literature, interlarding your remarks with quotations, is ill-bred. It places them in an awkward situation, and does not add to your popularity. In conversing with persons of refinement and intelligence, do not endeavour to attract their admiration by pouring forth every item of your own information upon the subject under consideration, but listen as well as talk, and modestly follow their lead. I do not mean to assent to any opinion they may advance, if you really differ in your own tastes, but do not be too ready to show your superior judgment or information. Avoid argument. It is not conversation, and frequently leads to ill feeling. If you are unfortunately drawn into an argument, keep your temper under perfect control, and if you find your adversary is getting too warm, endeavour to introduce some other topic. Avoid carefully any allusion to the age or personal defects of your companion, or anyone who may be in the room, and be very careful in your language when speaking of a stranger to another person. I have heard a lady inquire of a gentleman who that frightful girl in blue could be, and received the information that the lady in question was the gentleman's own sister. Be careful when travelling not to wound the feelings of your friends in another country or city by underrating their native place, or attempting to prove the superiority of your own home over theirs. Very young girls are apt to suppose, from what they observe in older ones, that there is some particular manner to be put on in talking to gentlemen, and, not knowing exactly what it is, they are embarrassed and reserved. Others observe certain airs and looks used by their elders in this intercourse, and try to imitate them as a necessary part of company behaviors, and so become affected and lose that first of charms, simplicity, natural grace. To such, let me say, your companions are in error. It requires no peculiar manner, nothing to be put on, in order to converse with gentlemen any more than with ladies, and the more pure and elevated your sentiments are, and the better cultivated your intellect is, the easier will you find it to converse pleasantly with all. One good rule can be always followed by young ladies: to converse with a lady friend as if there were gentlemen present, and to converse with a gentleman as if in the room with other ladies. Avoid affectation. It is the sure test of a deceitful, vulgar mind. The best cure is to try to have those virtues which you would affect, and then they will appear naturally.
In the next chapter, the author shifts from conversation to clothing, where the rules are just as detailed. She offers precise instructions on how a lady ought to dress for nearly every occasion, from morning visits to errands on a rainy day.
A lady is never so well dressed as when you cannot remember what she wears. Such an effect is produced where every part of the dress harmonizes, where each color suits the wearer's style, and where there is perfect neatness. One glaring color or conspicuous article would mar the beauty. It is, unfortunately, too much the custom in America to wear any article or shape that is fashionable, without regard to personal style. If it is the fashion, it must be worn, though it may exaggerate a defect or conceal a beauty. Judgment is required to follow fashion without eccentricity, and yet wear what is becoming. Another fault of our fair countrywomen is their extravagance. No better advice can be given to a young person than to dress always according to her circumstances. She will be more respected with a simple wardrobe, if it is known she is dependent on her own exertions, or saving a husband or father from unnecessary outlay, than if she wore costly fabrics and incurred debt. If neatness, consistency, and good taste preside, expensive fabrics are not needed, for with the simplest materials, harmony of color, accurate fitting, and perfect neatness, she will always appear well dressed. General rules. Neatness. This is the first rule. Perfect cleanliness and careful adjustment are indispensable. Let the hair be always smooth and becomingly arranged, each article exquisitely clean, with neat collar and sleeves, and tidy shoes and stockings. The simplest dress will appear well, while a torn or soiled collar, rough hair, or untidy feet will ruin the effect of the most costly dress. A neat arrangement of her wardrobe is necessary. A fine collar or lace, if tumbled or soiled, loses its beauty. Each article of dress, when taken off, should be placed carefully in its proper place. Nice dresses should be hung up by a loop on the inside of the waistband, with skirts turned inside out. Cloaks should hang in smooth folds. Shawls should be folded in their original creases. All fine articles, lace, embroidery, and handkerchiefs should be placed by themselves in a drawer, laid out smoothly, and kept from dust. Furs should be kept in a box alone, and in summer carefully packed with camphor to protect from moths. The bonnet should always rest upon a stand in the bandbox, as its shape and trimming will be injured by letting it lie on its face, sides, or crown. Adaptiveness. Let each dress worn be suitable to the occasion. A toilet may be offensive by being too elaborate, or by being slovenly. Never wear a dress which is out of place or out of season. It is in as bad taste to receive your morning calls in an elaborate evening dress as it would be to attend a ball in your morning wrapper. Harmony. To appear well dressed without harmony, both in color and materials, is impossible. When arranging any dress, be careful that each color harmonizes, and let no one article, by its glaring costliness, make all the rest appear mean. A costly lace over a flimsy silk will only make the dress appear poorer. A rich trimming looks as badly upon a cheap dress as a mean one does upon an expensive fabric. Observe this rule always in purchasing goods. One costly article can ruin the harmony in a dress, which, without it, though plain and inexpensive, would be becoming. Do not save on the dress or cloak to buy a more elaborate bonnet, but let the cost be well equalized. A plain merino or dark silk, with a cloth cloak, will look much better than the most expensive velvet cloak over a cheap delaine dress. Fashion. Do not be too submissive to the dictates of fashion. At the same time, avoid oddity or eccentricity. Some persons follow fashion to its extreme point, in defiance of taste. This is a mark of vulgarity. Every new style admits adaptation to individual cases, producing a pleasing, as well as fashionable effect. Not only good taste, but health is often sacrificed to dressing in the extreme of fashion. Be careful to have your dress comfortable and becoming, and let the prevailing mode come into secondary consideration, avoiding the other extreme of oddity. Style and form of dress. Be always careful that each article fits accurately. An ill-fitting pair of corsets, or wrinkles in underclothes, will make a dress set badly. A stocking too large will make the boot uncomfortably tight, and too small will compress the foot. In a dress, no outlay upon the material will compensate for a badly fitting garment. A cheap calico made to fit accurately and easily will give a more ladylike air than the richest silk, which wrinkles or is too tightly strained. Economy. By economy, I do not mean mere cheapness. To buy a poor, flimsy fabric because the price is low is extravagance. In purchasing goods, let each material be the best of its kind. A good, strong material will be found cheapest in the end, though the actual expenditure may be larger at first. Comfort. Many ladies trace suffering to improper disregard of comfort. The most exquisite ball costume will never compensate for injury from tight lacing, nor will the prettiest foot be worth the pain a tight boot entails. Graceful effects will not prevent suffering from cold. A light ball dress and exquisite hair arrangement too often make the wearer dare the coldest night with a light shawl or hood to prevent crushing lace. Make it a fixed rule to have the head, feet, and chest well protected when going to a party, even at the risk of a crushed flower. Many a fair head has been laid in a coffin, a victim to consumption, from rashly venturing out of a heated ballroom with only light protection. Details. Be careful that the details of your dress are perfectly finished. Small articles require constant care. They will revenge themselves if neglected. Let the collar, handkerchief, boots, gloves, and belts be always whole, neat, and adapted to the dress. A lace collar will look as badly over a chintz dress as a linen one would with velvet. Attention to these minor points are sure tests of taste. A shabby or ill-fitting boot or glove will ruin the most elaborate walking dress, while a plainer one will be becoming if all details are accurately fitted, clean, and well put on. Let the hair be smooth and glossy, the skin pure, and the colors and fabric harmonize and be suitable for the occasion, and you will always appear ladylike and well-dressed. Home dresses. Morning dress. The most suitable dress for breakfast is a loose wrapper. The material, except in winter, should be washable like chintz or muslin. A lady with household duties will find washable materials advantageous. A large apron of domestic gingham can protect the dress. If domestic duties require attention and she has frequent morning calls, it is best to dress for callers before breakfast, wearing a loose sack and skirt of domestic gingham over the dress, which can be removed quickly. Married ladies often wear a cap in the morning, and lately young girls have adopted the fashion. It is better to let the hair be perfectly smooth, requiring no cap, which is often worn to conceal a lazy arrangement of the hair. Slippers of embroidered cloth are prettiest with a wrapper, and in summer, black morocco is most suitable for the house. Dress for morning visits. A lady should never receive morning callers in a wrapper, unless at an unusually early hour or due to unexpected demands. An elaborate costume before dinner is in bad taste. The dress should fit neatly, finished at the throat and wrists by an embroidered collar and cuffs. Unless necessary, no cap or headdress should be worn. A wrapper with handsome trimming, open over a pretty white skirt, may be worn. But the simple dress for breakfast or domestic duties is not suitable for receiving visits of ceremony. Evening dress. The home evening dress should vary by circumstances. If no visitor is expected, the morning dress is suitable. But to receive visitors, it should be of lighter material, and a light headdress may be worn. For young ladies, ribbon or velvet are suitable for a headdress. Flowers, unless natural ones in summer, are in bad taste, except for invited guests. Dark silk in winter and thin material in summer make the most suitable dresses for evening. Walking dresses. Walking dresses should be of quiet colors and never conspicuous. Browns, modes, and neutral tints with black and white make the prettiest dresses for the street. Avoid wearing several bright colors. One may be worn to relieve a somber effect, but sparingly. Boots should be strong and thick to protect from damp or dust. Always wear neat, clean, nicely fitting gloves. The effect of the most tasteful costume will be ruined if details are neglected, such as a soiled bonnet cap, untidy strings, or torn gloves. There is no surer mark of vulgarity than overdressing or gay dressing in the street. Let materials be costly if desired, but avoid exaggerations of fashion or conspicuous colors. Let good taste dictate limits, and colors harmonize without attracting attention. Shopping dresses should be of material that will bear the crush of a crowded store without injury. No lace or delicate fabrics. A merino dress in winter with a cloth cloak and plain velvet or silk bonnet is most suitable. In summer, a dress and cloak of plain mode-colored lavella cloth or other cool but strong fabric with a simply trimmed straw bonnet is best for shopping. Storm dresses. A lady obliged to go out frequently in bad weather will find a storm dress a convenience and economy. Both dress and cloak should be of woolen material which sheds water. White skirts are out of place. A woolen skirt made quite short to clear muddy streets is proper. Stout, thick-soled boots and gloves of silk, beaver cloth, or lisle thread are most suitable. The bonnet should be straw or felt, simply trimmed, and, above all, carry a large umbrella for full protection. Marketing. A dress of the most inexpensive kind is best. There is no surer mark of vulgarity than a costly dress in the market. A chintz is the best skirt to wear, and in winter, a dark chintz skirt over a delaine dress will protect it from baskets and market soils, looking well and being washable. Traveling. Traveling dresses should be of quiet color, perfectly plain, with a deep mantle or cloak of the same material. When traveling with a young babe, a washable, dark, plain dress is best. A conspicuous traveling dress is in bad taste. Jewelry or ornaments are out of place. Let the dress be dark, plain, with a simple straw or felt bonnet trimmed to match, and a thick barège veil. If white collars and sleeves are worn, they should be plain linen. Strong boots and thick gloves are indispensable, and a heavy shawl should be carried for sudden weather changes. Evening dresses. Evening dresses are governed by the number of guests and character of the entertainment. For small social companies, a dark silk in winter and a pretty lawn, barège, or white muslin in summer are appropriate, with a light headdress of ribbon, velvet, or a plain cap. For a larger party, a low-necked, short-sleeved silk, light-coloured, or thin goods for evening wear, with kid gloves and flowers in the hair, are suitable. A ball dress should be a very dressy silk or light, thin material over silk, trimmed with lace, flowers, or ribbon.
Next, the author turns her attention to the subject of travel, with advice on how a lady should dress, behave, and even pack for the journey. Whether visiting a neighbouring town or setting off on a longer trip, propriety, it seems, must always come along for the ride.
There is no situation in which a lady is more exposed than when she travels, and no position where a dignified ladylike deportment is more indispensable and certain to command respect. If you travel under the escort of a gentleman, give him as little trouble as possible. Do not interfere with his arrangements. It is best, when starting, to hand your escort a sufficient sum of money to cover all your expenses, retaining your pocketbook for personal use. Have a strong pocket made in your upper petticoat, and in that carry your money, reserving only a small sum in your dress pocket for incidental expenses. In your travelling satchel, carry an oilskin bag, containing your sponge, tooth, and nail brushes, and some soap. In this satchel carry also some crackers or sandwiches, if you will be long enough upon the road to need a luncheon. In your carpet bag, carry a large shawl, and if you will travel by night, or stop where it will be inconvenient to open your trunks, carry your night clothes, and what clean linen you may require. It is best to have your name and address engraved upon the plate of your carpet bag, and to sew a white card, with your name and the address to which you are travelling, in clear, plain letters upon it. If you carry a novel or any other reading, it is best to carry the book in your satchel, and not open the carpet bag until you are ready for the night. If you are to pass the night in the cars, carry a warm woolen or silk hood, that you may take off your bonnet at night. No one can sleep comfortably in a bonnet. One rule to be always observed in travelling is punctuality. Rise early enough to have ample time for arranging everything needful. If you sleep upon the boat or at a hotel, always give directions to the servant to waken you at an hour sufficiently early to allow ample time for preparation. It is better to be all ready 20 minutes too soon than 5 minutes late. A lady will always dress plainly when travelling. A gay dress or finery of any sort when in a boat, stage or car lays a woman open to severe misconstruction. Wear always neutral tints, and have the material made up plainly and substantially, but avoid any article of dress that is glaring or conspicuous. Above all, never wear jewellery, unless it be your watch, or flowers. They are both in excessively bad taste. A quiet, unpretending dress, and dignified demeanour will ensure for a lady respect, though she travel alone from Maine to Florida. If you are obliged to pass the night upon a steamboat, secure, if possible, a stateroom. You will find the luxury of being alone, able to retire and rise without witnesses, fully compensates for the extra charge. Before you retire, find out the position and number of the stateroom occupied by your escort, in case you wish to find him during the night. In times of terror, such care will be invaluable. You may not be able to obtain a stateroom, and must then sleep in the lady's cabin. It is best, in this case, to take off the dress only, merely loosening the stays and skirts, and, unless you are sick, you may sit up to read until quite a late hour. Never allow your escort to accompany you into the cabin. The saloon is open always to both ladies and gentlemen, and the cabin is for ladies alone. Many ladies are sufficiently ill-bred to ask a husband or brother into the cabin, totally overlooking the fact that by so doing she may be keeping others from removing their dresses to lie down. Such conduct is not only excessively ill-bred, but intensely selfish. There is scarcely any situation in which a lady can be placed, more admirably adapted to test her good breeding, than in the sleeping cabin of a steamboat. If you are so unfortunate as to suffer from seasickness, your chances for usefulness are limited, and patient suffering your only resource. Never leave home without a straw-covered bottle of brandy and another of camphor in your carpet-bag. As acquaintances, formed during a journey, are not recognized afterwards, unless mutually agreeable, do not refuse either a pleasant word or any little offer of service from your companions. And, on the other hand, be ready to aid them, if in your power. Selfishness is the root of all ill-breeding, and it is never more conspicuously displayed than in travelling. When in the car, if you find the exertion of talking painful, say so frankly, your escort cannot be offended. Do not continually pester either your companion or the conductor with questions, such as, "Where are we now? When shall we arrive?" If you are wearied, this impatience will only make the journey still more tedious. Try to occupy yourself with looking at the country through which you are passing, or with a book. If you are travelling without any escort, speak to the conductor before you start, requesting him to attend to you whilst in the car or boat under his control. Sit quietly in the cars when they reach the depot until the first bustle is over, and then engage a porter to procure for you a hack and get your baggage. If upon a boat, let one of the servants perform this office, being careful to fee him for it. Make an engagement with the hackman to take you only in his hack, and inquire his charge before starting. In this way you avoid unpleasant company during your drive, and overcharge at the end of it. If you expect a friend to meet you at the end of your journey, sit near the door of the steamboat saloon, or in the ladies' room at the car depot, that he may find you easily. There are many little civilities which a true gentleman will offer to a lady travelling alone, which she may accept, even from an entire stranger, with perfect propriety. But, while careful to thank him courteously, whether you accept or decline his attentions, avoid any advance towards acquaintanceship. If he sits near you and seems disposed to be impertinent or obtrusive in his attentions or conversation, lower your veil and turn from him, either looking from the window or reading. A dignified, modest reserve is the surest way to repel impertinence. If you find yourself during your journey in any awkward or embarrassing situation, you may, without impropriety, request the assistance of a gentleman, even a stranger, and he will, probably, perform the service requested, receive your thanks, and then relieve you of his presence. Never, upon any account, or under any provocation, return rudeness by rudeness. Nothing will rebuke incivility in another so surely as perfect courtesy in your own manner. Many will be shamed into apology who would annoy you for hours if you encourage them by acts of rudeness on your own part. In travelling alone, choose, if possible, a seat next to another lady, or near an elderly gentleman. If your neighbour seems disposed to shorten the time by conversing, do not be too hasty in checking him. Such acquaintances end with the journey, and a lady can always so deport herself that she may beguile the time pleasantly, without in the least compromising her dignity. Any slight attention, or an apology made for crushing or incommoding you, is best acknowledged by a courteous bow, in silence.
Chapter 4 finds our author arriving at the hotel, and with her a full set of expectations. Whether passing through a grand city or staying at a country inn, the rules of refinement remain firmly in place.
In America, where the mania for travelling extends through all classes, from the highest to the lowest, a few hints upon deportment at a hotel will not be amiss, and these hints are especially addressed to ladies travelling alone. When you arrive at the hotel, inquire at once for the proprietor. Tell him your name and address, and ask him to conduct you to a good room, naming the length of time you purpose occupying it. You may also request him to wait upon you to the table, and allot you a seat. As the hours for meals, at a large hotel, are very numerous, it is best to mention the time when you wish to breakfast, dine, or sup. If you stay more than one day at the hotel, do not tax the proprietor with the duty of escorting you to the table more than once. Request one of the waiters always to meet you as you enter, and wait upon you to your seat. This saves the embarrassment of crossing the room entirely unattended, while it shows others that you are a resident at the house. The waiter will then take your order for the dishes you wish. Give this order in a low tone, and do not harass the man by contradicting yourself several times. Decide what you want before you ask for it, and then give your order quietly but distinctly. Use, always, the butter knife, salt spoon, and sugar tongs, though you may be entirely alone in the use of them. The attention to the small details of table etiquette is one of the surest marks of good breeding. If any trifling civility is offered by the gentleman beside you, or opposite to you, thank him civilly, if you either accept or decline it. Thank the waiter for any extra attention he may offer. Remember that a ladylike deportment is always modest and quiet. If you meet a friend at table, and converse, let it be in a tone of voice sufficiently loud for him to hear, but not loud enough to reach ears for which the remarks are not intended. A boisterous, loud voice, loud laughter, and bold deportment at a hotel are sure signs of vulgar breeding. When you have finished your meal, cross the room quietly. If you go into the parlour, do not attract attention by a hasty entrance or forward manner, but take the seat you may select quietly. The acquaintances made in a hotel may be dropped afterwards, if desirable, without rudeness, and a pleasant greeting to other ladies whom you may recognize from meeting them in the entries or at table is courteous and well-bred. Be careful, however, not to force attentions where you see they are not agreeably received. A lady's dress, when alone at a hotel, should be of the most modest kind. At breakfast let her wear a close morning dress, and never, even at supper, appear alone at the table with bare arms or neck. If she comes in late from the opera or a party in full dress, she should not come into the supper room, unless her escort accompanies her. A travelling or walking dress can be worn with perfect propriety at any meal at a hotel, as it is usually travellers who are the guests at the table. After breakfast, pass an hour or two in the parlour, unless you are going out, whilst the chambermaid puts your room in order. You should, before leaving the room, lock your trunk, and be careful not to leave money or trinkets lying about. When you go out, lock your door, and give the key to the servant to hand to the clerk of the office, who will give it to you when you return. You may do this, even if you leave the room in disorder, as the chambermaids all carry duplicate keys, and can easily enter your room in your absence to arrange it. The door should not be left open, as dishonest persons, passing along the entry, could enter without fear of being questioned. If you see that another lady, though she may be an entire stranger, is losing her collar, or needs attention called to any disorder in her dress, speak to her in a low tone, and offer to assist her in remedying the difficulty. Be careful always in opening a door, or raising a window in a public parlour, that you are not incommoding anyone else. Never sit down to the piano uninvited, unless you are alone in the parlour. Do not take any book you may find in the room away from it. It is best always to carry writing materials with you, but if this is not convenient, you can always obtain them at the office. In a strange city, it is best to provide yourself with a small map and guidebook, that you may be able to find your way from the hotel to any given point, without troubling anyone for directions. If you wish for a carriage, ring, and let the waiter order one for you. When leaving a hotel, if you have been there for several days, give the waiter at table and the chambermaid a fee, as your unprotected situation will probably call for many services out of their regular routine of duties. On leaving, ring, order your bill, pay it, state the time at which you wish to leave, and the train you will take to leave the city. Request a man to be sent, to carry your baggage to the hack, and if you require your next meal at an unusual hour, to be ready for your journey, order it then.
And with that, we'll leave things here for this video. This covered just the first 4 chapters of the book. There are actually 26 in total, touching on everything from ballroom etiquette and the treatment of servants to health and well-being. If you'd like to read the full book, there's a link in the description. It's completely free, as the book is in the public domain. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. We'll be covering later chapters from this book and many others in future videos. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. We truly appreciate it and hope to see you again next time.